So painting the cannons, although these are printed in black, they still really need painting, and you'll be amazed what a difference it makes when you put a little bit of paint onto them. They will really come to life. So to paint them, all you really need to do is put them in a little clamp like so that you can get to the paint. When the paint's dried, you can just then handle the cannon and paint in that last little spigot there that you're holding it with the clamp, and then you're good to go. So paint it all around with a sort of a metal black, matte black. Needs to be, or you could use a satin black and get a little bit of a contrast. I've done that before. That can look quite nice. So yeah, you do have to take into account that everything gets matter as you reduce down the scale, but I'll be using matte metal black for the cannons and for the swivel guns. So that's how we're going to paint those. We'll come back to that in a minute. So put that to one side. The height adjustment wedge and cheese wedge and the wheels we are leaving in the natural wood, so we can put them to one side. I've got little bags for each one of my cannons so I don't lose the parts, but you can manage that any way you like. And then just do a little test build so you're clear in your mind how this goes together. The two axles, the one with a little hole in goes at the back for an eye bolt, and the one at the front has a steeper center section. So that goes in like so. Actually, that's the wrong way around because the laser engraving wants to be on the outside. So just be sure in your mind how this is all going to fit together. Yeah, and then that axle at the back. So it's quite simple, straightforward, but there is quite a bit of slack in here, so you've got to make sure everything is straight. So best thing to do is to upend your two axles like so. Let's see if we can get you a bit closer. So if you upend your two axles, a little blob of medium CA, and then put your first sidewall in place, and then dry fit only the second sidewall, just to make sure everything's nice and square. And then when that one's dried, glue that one in, and then you're ready for painting the parts. So let's get them glued together, shall we? So once you've got one side glued in, we leave it at that. Obviously, we can't glue the second side in because you're not going to be able to get your cannon in. So we're going to have to paint that side separately. But that's not a biggie because we're painting two colours. So we're painting this top bit in the black, even if we are not painting them. This bit still needs to be painted black to represent painted iron, so you'll want a little clip or something to hold that part when you paint this bit red. Right, I will build the rest of these up and then I'll come back to you. So with the red part of our carriage painted, we can now paint in the black. So very carefully we're painting in this top bit here, which forms the hinged bracket that holds the cannon in place. So on the actual thing, this bit that I'm painting right now, which on here has a little lip, that's the hinge, and has a little locking device held in with a pin on a chain. At this scale you're not going to emulate it, but on larger scales I have in the past. So both sides, because it's going to be visible, make sure that you're nice and even. There we go. You have to sort of eyeball it a little bit on the back because you've not got the laser line. So make sure you're not using the same black that you've used for the woodwork, because this is a metal part, and so you want it to be shown as a metal part. Come on, focus. I'll take you out a little bit. There you go, that's what you're trying to achieve. So it's not difficult, just appropriate sized brush. And then with the Canon, I'm just going to swap brushes, sticking with appropriate size. We want one that's a little bit bigger for the actual gun. You'll be surprised what a difference it makes when you paint these up, because all the sort of fuzziness you get of the 3D print disappears, and little details pop out, like the coat of arms, the plate that the powder goes on, all that sort of stuff. They all sort of pop out. Because your resin is black, you may get away with just one coat. You can see I've not added primer here. We're not going to be handling it a lot, so when dried this should be okay, and this is an acrylic paint. So yeah, I'm not going to paint the little pins. They do have a name and I've forgotten what they are, but you do want to just do the ends of them, because that will be visible. I'm expecting the tolerance to be fairly tight, so all I really want to do is just make sure that anything visible is painted in. But there is a coat of arms on here, and it is so subtle, I'm not even sure the camera will pick it up. Can you just see it between the little pegs there? And then you've got the little plate there that the powder would go on, and then obviously a match to light it. So do make sure that you have painted on the inside of your Canon, and there you go. Now if we compare that, you can immediately see the difference. Once it's painted, it really looks the part. Right, I'm going to carry on getting those done. So to build up the Canon, first thing is to make sure that you've got the coat of arms facing upwards. So when you look at the Canon side on, the little arms are not in the centre of the Canon, they're slightly lower down, and you want them at the bottom. So you should be able to place him in, and then I'm just going to put a bit of CA in our little grooves here, where the side of the carriage will lock into place. There we go. We'll plop that in, thread it onto the Canon, make sure it's all sat where we want it. And there we go. So at this point the Canon's loose, and that's how you want it, because we've got to put the little wedge in. So we're just going to leave the CA glue to dry, but that's essentially the Canon mounted. We've just got to put the wheels and the wedge in. Having built up a number of these, I'm now able to say I've got a sort of a way of working that I think is probably the best, so I'll take you through that. So with the carriage built up and the Canon mounted, and whilst the Canon's still movable, first thing you really want to do is put in the little metal strip that goes in. If you do it after you've put the wheels on, it becomes more difficult to do it. So it's better to do it right from the off. And we're going to pass it through the first hole there, and then feed it into the second one. Which I have found to be a little bit tricky. There we go. Push that through. There we go. And then what I'm doing is I'm adding a dollop of medium CA on the inside on both sides. There we go. Then, before you put the wheels on, whilst you can still lay this flat, I'm then putting in the cheese wedge. So, a small amount of glue on the front end, underside, and a small amount of glue on the axle. There we go, like so. And that wants to rest on the little metal bar, really. And then that should sit there like that. Doesn't make much difference whether you glue the cannon down now or not, but I've been leaving it loose and gluing it down just before I put the eye bolts in. So, gluing on the wheels, you want them pretty much pushed back to the carriage sides. The axles should protrude a little bit. So, a little bit just where you're going to rest the wheel. Like so. And so, larger wheels at the front, smaller wheels at the back. I'm not really sure why it had different size wheels, but they do. There we go. So that looks pretty authentic now. I mean, there's always limitations in a manufactured kit because we've got square axles, and that's the limitation of having laser cut parts. I mean, the only other thing they could do would be to use oversize and have you round it off, and you know, is that practical? Maybe, maybe not. But it's certainly better than using brass wire, which I've seen used and what have you. There we go. So that's the wheels on. So you can now glue the cannon into place. And what I'm doing is just putting a little bit of glue on the underneath of the gun at the back, and then just resting that into place. So that's that bit done. So the only thing you've got left now is the eye bolts, and you've got 3 of those. So what I'm doing is I'm dipping the end into the CA, so I've got a little bit of glue on the end, and just feeding that into the slot. You've got loads of space. Make sure that the eye bolt is the only thing protruding from the slot, and that the rest of it has gone inside. We don't want the eye bolts at different lengths. And you can see how if you hadn't shortened those, you'd see a bit of the eye bolt coming through. So that was the right thing to do. And then that last eye bolt just drops in there like that. Make sure they're nice and straight. And there you go, that is the cannon done. And don't they look fabulous? Turning my attention to the swivel guns now, first thing you want to do is, with a very gentle grit, just smooth the end off. Just check it. This is where all the 3D printing contacts would have been, so just make sure you've not got any lumps or bumps there. And I'm also finding that most of the there's like a little tab on that little rod there. If we need to, just because this is going into photo etch rather than wood, we want to make sure it's nice and smooth and there's nothing fouling getting in the way. That's all the cleanup you need on the guns. And then the instructions are asking us to insert the handle, and we've got to further drill the hole for that. And when you look at the photo etch part carefully, you'll see there is a little step in it which is just there. You can see there's a tiny step in it. So that bit there is the shaft that's going to go into the gun. So we want to make sure that these all look the same, and that when it's mounted in the gun, they all look uniform. So we need to make sure we get the depth right when we're drilling. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take my drill bit, which is already in. This is the 0.8 drill that the instructions ask for. I'm going to get it to the length there, and then using a little bit of tape, I'm just going to mark out that depth. So we need it to go that deep. So if I put my thumbnail there and put the tape on it, there you go, that's the depth we need to drill to. And if we're slightly off, the fact that they're all uniform it won't really matter. But yeah, I think we're pretty good. We can check that now. Yeah, if anything, I'm a bit too deep. I'm just going to move it up a little bit. There we go. So that is now absolutely in the right place. I'm just going to trim that tape off a little bit. Okay, so now my drill is ready to go. Let's drill out the length of this hole. There we go, and then we can test fit the handle. Want to make sure that we've got, there we go, that looks great. So we'll put a little bit of medium CA on the end. And in we go, make sure it's looking straight. Excellent, that's the swivel guns done. Just another 11 of those to do, which not surprisingly I'll do off camera. So while the paint is drying on the swivel guns, we can look to install the mounts for them now, which go into these blocks here. The instructions tell you to snip a nail down to 8mm. So I've just done a trial fit with our chemically blackened nails that we did earlier on when we blackened the photo etch parts. And I've found that that will sit proud, and you're going to have to then drive the nail in, which will be very secure, but it's not possible to really do that easily with the yolks already folded. So what I've done is I've cut the nail down to 5mm, and that way it sits flush on the top there with the CA glue driving in. It's going to help hold it in place perfectly well, and I think if we install these into situ, then we can put the guns in and fold them together actually with the yolks already installed. So that's my plan. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that now. So we're going to start by dropping the pin through the base of the yoke, like so. Then we're going to put some CA glue on the length of the pin, sort of the bottom half of it, and a little bit just underneath the base, just to help it sit. And then the pin can get dropped down like so. So all we've got to do now is install the painted gun once it's dry, and just squeeze that together with some pliers or tweezers, and probably we'll want to fix that into place to stop them swinging about. I think that's going to be easier than gluing the whole assembly together and then installing it, but I might try one the other way and give you a view when I'm done, but that seems to work for me in my head for now. Time to install our cannons, and you've got a couple of decisions to make. Are you going to have the cannon run out, or are you going to have the cannon not run out? I think most people are probably going to go with run out. It looks the best from both the inside and the outside, and it's the usual way that most people display their models. So once you've decided, it's a very simple case because we're not rigging these cannons in this instance. I am putting out a standalone video on rigging cannons, so if you want to, you will have to buy some blocks and some additional thread, but it will be something that you could do. Some people like to rig, some people don't, some people part rig. It all depends on modeler's personal preference. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of CA glue under each of the four wheels, and I'm going to carefully, because we don't want to move this around on the deck because we'll leave a witness of glue, so we've got to place it right first time. So gonna put the gun through the opening, get my distance correct, make sure it's square, and then drop the cannon in place. I think I'm happy with that. Just some minor tweaks, there we go. So that's our cannon done. So you have got enough to do 8. Historically, as per the commentary and the instructions, she had 6. I'm going with just 6. we have a couple of pieces that we need to put on the outside of the hull here. We've got little holes there that are to receive nails, and then we've got this little plate which goes on here with a ring that needs to be protruding above the gun rail. So we'll be using that later on when we come to do the rigging. Now, it's quite difficult to actually drive a nail into this, especially as we've now got all these parts on. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue it into place and then put the nail in a more decorative way rather than driving it in. We'll shorten it so that it goes into the hole. Now, the hole itself gives you a fairly decent amount of length for the nail to go in. So if I take this nail out, you'll see how much goes in. So there's a good 2.5–3 millimeters of nail going into that. There you go. So we will have a little bit of additional strength from that. So that's how far we want to clip our nail down to, just about that length. So I'm going to cut it down to about there. So I'm going to trim the nail. And what we'll do is we'll put that in as a second item and put the actual item on first. So this is our item here, and we need to put it in at a slight angle, but so it's just protruding from the deck. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of medium CA over the hole, and then on the back of the plate here I'm going to put some on the thin neck area, which will be the bit that is in contact with the rail, and a little bit just where we're going to contact there. So what we want to do is line up the item over the hole and then put the nail in. So the nail just stops it from moving away from where we want it, and then we can hold that in place, push the nail home like so, and the part is on. So just to recap, because I'm not sure how visible that was, we're shortening the nail, we're gluing the piece into position, and then pushing the nail in to the pre-lasered hole there, making sure that we've got the eye above the gun rail, and it's having that eye above the gun rail that gives you the correct angle for the part. So you can't get in with a hammer and start hammering. It's going to start knocking bits off if you do that, so you don't want to be putting any impact on the hull at this stage. So yeah, that looks great, and job done. So now with the photo etch part 8 in place, we also have these eyes to put on photo etch part 2. So there's one of these on either side of the stern. There's also one to go on the prow, just there. So we're going to do the stern ones first, and we have little slots for the stern ones, but we need to test fit them, and we may want to open up the hole a little bit. So let's have a look at test fitting the parts first. So just a test fit first. So the slot, if it's lined up with the slot that was in the template behind it, you should find that your eye fits in all the way up to the little collar. If it doesn't, just shorten the length of it a little bit so that it goes in. You could choose to open it up with a drill as well, but mine are fitting, so I'm not going to do that. But on the prow I am going to have to, because it's got filled up with paint and all sorts of other stuff in the process of preparing up the hull. So I'm just going to put a little bit of medium CA on the end of the part, and then we can put that in. There we go. So I'll do the other side off camera, then we'll have a look at the prow. So I'm just opening up the hole in the prow. I can still see where it should be, but it's got blocked up with paint and things as we've been doing the hull. So I'm using a 0.8 drill bit here just to open that up, and we're going to do a test fit now and see if the bolt fits in. Yeah, that goes in perfectly now. So next thing we've got to do is think about the block on it. So it's time to do our first block, and this is going on the eye of the prow here. Let me show you, we're doing this, and it's going to be easier to tie the block onto the eye bolt and then install the whole thing into the prow than to try and attempt to tie this onto the bolt on the prow, just because of where it is, and we've got all the paraphernalia on the hull now. So that's what we're going to do. First job is to just check that you've got a nice clear hole in the block. It's easier to do this now than later on. So I'm just got a 0.8mm drill bit and just passing the block through there. Make sure there's nothing in there blocking it up. You sometimes get little bits of debris from the manufacturing process of the blocks, but this is all good. This is, I think it's F10 off the top of my head, don't quote me, the block we're using, but it's the 4mm single block. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to go around it and make sure that the grooves on the side of the blocks are nice and clear as well, nice and defined, and we're just making sure that block's good and ready to go. So we're going to need 2 threads for doing the block, and also you're going to need something like this. This is a helping hand with a crocodile clip, but something you can hold the block into. I also quite regularly use, let me just get one, these are self-locking tweezers, and you can hold a block in the self-locking tweezers, and then that leaves you your 2 hands free. So you can use either method. I'm using this because I can get you a bit closer to the camera in this instance. So we're going to use 2 threads. Now it doesn't tell you on the instructions what to do in the way of threads, so I've got F17 and F18. F17 being the thinner one. So the one that's going to go around the block is F18. So I've cut a length of F18, and what we're going to do first of all is we're just going to wrap it round the block. So we're wrapping it where there is no holes. You'll be able to see what I've done in a minute. There we go. So making sure that our thread has gone all the way around. Now if you want, you can put a bit of glue on and stuff, but there isn't really a need. So what we're going to do is we're going to clamp it on the side with the threads to hold the thread into place like that. So let's do that. So our crocodile clip is now holding the block, and it's holding our 2 lines. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get our thinner thread, and we're just going to tie that off. So with our block held, we can now tie it off. So I've just made a little knot there, so we've got a little loop. We can pass that over the thread there and pull it tight so that it ties up as close as we can to the top of the block there. And then I'm just going to tie a second knot over the top, like so. That is then tied off, and then just to hold it all into place, I'm going to put a small amount of medium CA on. That'll get soaked in, and on black thread it won't be noticeable. So you only need a small amount. There we go. So we'll just give that a moment, and we can come in and remove those threads. So I'm using, these are embroidery scissors. They're razor sharp, and they are really good for this sort of work. There we go. So that is our block all tied off. So what we've got to do now is add the eye bolt. So we're going to thread one end of the thread through the eye. Take that up to the top like so, and then we can tie it off. And as you get the knot nearly closed up, then you want to correct the position of the bolt. There we go. So that knot is tight, but we want the eye bolt there just to hang away. There we go, sort of facing down. So we now have the eye attached, or the block attached to the eye, whichever way you want to do it, and a bit more CA just to hold all that together. There we go. So what we're looking for is the bolt to sort of be there and the block to be attached on the end so that it's sort of upright, and when it comes to get tied off we'll be able to move on the bolt. So we're gluing the knot, not the eye bolt. Yeah. Okay, so should be able to trim that off now. There we go. So we can now remove our finished block. There you go. That is ready to be installed onto our prow. So we'll put some medium CI on that bit and glue her in, and the block is ready for use. I'm guessing for the bowsprit. You'll find that in some places during this build you've got extras in case you lose or damage them, which is really great of them. But if you do have them left over at the end of the build, it's worth keeping them, because you never know when they might be handy on the next 164 build that you do. So I always keep my little leftovers like that. That can go in a little box, and you just never know when they might be handy. So we need to very carefully clean up these steps that go on the outside of the hull. So I'm using a 400 grit here, and all I'm going to do is just gently take it backwards and forwards on this sanding stick. There we go, till I'm happy that it's all off. And we need to do both sides, the gluing side and the side that's presented, so that we've got good adhesion. And on the larger one, the upper part of the step, there we go, we need to do exactly the same, making sure we don't lose that nice gentle curve that's been lasered in for us. So just take it back, and as soon as it's gone, stop, don't keep going. Get rid of the witness of the nub. There we go, and then take it off the back so we can glue it on. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to clean up these parts, then we'll have a look at fitting them. Installing the steps now, and we've got marked out positions here, and we're going to start by putting the lower one on, which is what the marked out positions are for. So a small amount of wood glue on our little step, just applying this gently with a bit of a cocktail stick. There we go. And we want to install it with the photo etching detail facing down, and carefully place that on. And then the top piece will just go straight on top of it. So if we do that, we don't need to clean up the glue from the top of the lower piece. There we go. We'll give that a moment to dry, and then we'll come in with a knife as usual and just clean up any excess glue. We have this final grating to install now that the ladders are in place, and we need to put the anchor rope through. So I'm just going to pass it through one end from the back. There we go. And then pass the other end through the other side. You might find that you need to give it a bit of a twist to get it through the hole. Actually, mine is sprayed out a little bit, and so I think I'm going to cut the end and neaten the end up a little bit. So there we go. That gives us a nice neat end there. Be very careful when you're threading this through the grating. I managed to actually break my part and I'm having to glue it back together. So one side completely sheared off as I was passing the thread through. The opening is slightly too tight for the thread, so if you need to, just open that hole up a little bit by taking away some of the lower frame and making it a bit narrower. That's definitely caused me a problem, so just be careful of that and test fit and open up if you need to. And it was in the process of me opening up one side that I put a crack in, and then the whole thing just sheared off. But yeah, I couldn't get that through otherwise. So yeah, it was a bit tight. We can now install this. There we go. Be very careful with the ropes. You don't want to knock any of your swivel guns or anything like that off. Just make sure it's nice and straight. And we'll give that a minute and then we'll just clean up any excess glue. Ultimately, we're aiming to get this to wrap around your winch once and then pass through the hose pipe. So, but there's no point trying to do any of that until such time as you've got the grating securely glued into place. So we're just going to give that a minute. I'm going to tidy up the glue now. While I've been talking, it's probably had enough time. There we go. Go, looking good. So once your grating has dried on and is fixed in place, you can then take the anchor ropes, and what we want to do is just wrap them once around the windlass, and then you're going to pass them through the hose pipe. You might have to open up the hose pipe a little bit. If you do, use a little round file for that. But it shouldn't be too much of a problem. This is quite thick, the anchor rope, and it does almost fill the full diameter of the hose pipe. A little tip for me is once you've unravelled your rope and you've threaded it through and you've got it all ready, just cut the end off. Just snip the end off and coat it in a little bit of white wood glue. And that just stops the end from fraying, and you might even find it's easier to pass through your hose pipe like that as well. Then once you've got it through, just tie a little knot in it so that it's not going to go anywhere, and leave it like that. I'm going to leave it now like that until we've pretty much done all the rigging, and then I'll do the anchors, build up the anchors last, and put those on, because the anchors can get in the way, and if you look at the instructions, the anchors aren't being fixed in place until pretty much the last thing, and that's because they can get in the way of you doing the rigging. So for me, I'll do the anchors as the last job. It means I don't have to store a sub-assembly until I'm ready for it. So I'm just going to leave mine tied off like that. You absolutely want to get the rope work done on the deck level though, because you are going to have ropes and things going on there. It's going to be difficult to get in into here. So this is offset. So you've got one rope that is on this side of the bits there, and then you've got another one that's passing through underneath the bits and then passing round. So you'll be able to tighten up and arrange the rope the way you want when we come to put the anchors on. But for now, so it'll end up looking something like that. But for now, we can just leave that slack. Once we put the anchors on, we'll be able to pull it taut. So yeah, for now, just happy for that to hang in place. So that means I think that we're onto the masts next.